Can you believe it that one point in time, in the early 20th century, cars did not have walls? You know, some cars didn't even really have doors to speak of. They're literally just horseless carriages. And then, what do you know? Someone got the brand spanking idea, like, wow, it's kind of cold. Or I don't like being in inclement weather, so we should have some type of covering. And even then, once they had the covering, they might not have had windows, you know, to roll up because the technology wasn't there. So during these times, there was this transitional period where people had to stay warm and comfortable on their travels. So they brought an old technology along with them, and that is the lap blanket. Now, lap blankets are exactly what they sound like. They're not entirely long. I'm 6'1", so what I have in front of me really wouldn't even cover me up. This is literally like a comforter that you'd find on your couch today, okay? So I have a lap blanket to show you. And some of you may be like, well, what does that really have to do with outdoor recreation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? Now, it has a lot to do with outdoor recreation. First of all, when we go outdoors, we always want to try to come up with things that have multiple uses, right? So if you are someone in the 1910s, 1920s, and you've got a lap blanket, this thing right here could act as an obvious another level of insulation. Or it could possibly give you more comfort underneath you as you're curling up on the ground. Or it could be a pillow. Like, there's lots of uses for lap blankets, all right? I don't need to go into all of them. Now, this particular lap blanket is really unique in the way that the quality of how it was made, okay? Last week, I showed you guys an Abercrombie & Fitch pack. Now, Abercrombie & Fitch was like the premier outdoor recreation supplier for people who want to do outdoor recreation. Now, this is a direct competitor, but ironically, later on, Abercrombie & Fitch actually bought them out in the 1950s. So before that point, though, this company was in Chicago. This is like the Midwest version of Abercrombie & Fitch, and they held their own. Like, they are premier themselves. In fact, Al Capone used Antoine von Lengerke. I don't think I'm saying that right. Antoine von Lengerke. There we go. Used their firearms and used their holsters and their gun bags and ammunition and things like that. This was another premier supplier, either way. And it's, where do you know? In Chicago, Illinois. So as we take a look at this, some things stand out. This wool is not just a regular blanket weight wool. This is a fine broadcloth. This is really nice wool, okay? You can tell it just by the nap of the wool, just looking at it, right? It kind of has a sheen to it. But when you touch it, it's also not itchy. It's nice and soft. You would not have a problem laying on this at night and feeling like you get the scratchies. Also, look at the quilting, the edging. This isn't just stitched one row. It's stitched multiple rows. Now, a lot of that really does just have to do with design because it looks nice, right? It's an element of quality. When we open it up, it has a monogram on it. Now, this monogram in itself also kind of gives us a clue as to how old this blanket is. So this is 1920s, 1930s, because even in the 1930s, they had cars that had, you know, the full enclosure or whatever, but a lot of people were still using open cars, especially, you know, speedsters. And if you got money or something, you got this car that's kind of like a Corvette or something with the top down, you're doing the same thing. You know, when the sun's out, the bun's out, et cetera, et cetera. So anyhow, this has got a monogram, which that monogram style is definitely early 20th century style. Now, another clue that we have to the age is the tag itself. All right, and I mispronounced the name. So it's von Lengerke and Antoine, not Antoine von Lengerke. So von Lengerke and Antoine. This label dates to about the 1920s and 1930s, like I said. When we open it up, you see the sheen on this thing? Like, you see it almost glows. Now, this is a fall fur. When I purchased it, I didn't know what it was. I was kind of hoping that maybe it was going to be a bear fur, maybe it's going to be bison fur, or something else. And I reached out to my buddy, Nathaniel Logsden over Logsden & Co., because he does a lot of auto camping. Like, he's the one guy I go to for all my auto camping questions. And he thought, well, maybe it's horse, because horse hides were very popular and during the time period as well. But this is too soft and too luxurious for horse. Now, in truth, it could just be a fake material. But in the time period that we're talking about here, what they would usually do is they would actually take real fur and they would implement them and basically mat them into fibers to make fall fur. So I don't know what this is, but it is extremely soft. I kind of wonder if it's like a Sherpa. It's definitely not wool. I don't believe it to be bear, just because like the hairs are just too short. These hairs are maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 inch in length, so they're not terribly long. But anyhow, we do know that this is fall fur because there are areas in the blanket itself where it's kind of thin. I was able to take a look and I could see like the gauze-like material. Now, when you come across something like this kind of ties into my last video as well, because someone commented that pack, is it a candidate for conservation or is it something that I could use and repair? I have a rule of thumb. Anything that is so hard for me to find easily, I don't take it out into the field unless it's very special situations or circumstances. If I was going to use this blanket, it would not be in a living history setting where I'm opening up to the public and it's out there all the time, etc., getting sun and all those other things. Like, it would probably be a private camping trip for me to use and report back to it. And I might only do it once, possibly twice, and then I would store it away because I want the experience personally. And this is in great shape. Like, it's not so damaged. It's not at a point where I'm afraid of it just deteriorating, ripping, or what have you. It could happen, but this is in such fantastic shape, I'm not really too concerned about it. That pack, on the other hand, is in a fragile state. Canvas especially, it tends to get dry rotted. This blanket's been taken care of by whoever had it before, stored really well, no moth damage to speak of, and I want to keep it that way. But we really need to think as collectors, as reenactors, as living historians, when we see something original, how far do we want to take to use it or repair it or what have you? My rule of thumb is if it's common, I'll repair it if need be. If it's not common, I don't touch it. I use it as an example. That pack will never see straps on it. It will never get repaired. The leather will get some grease, some oil on it, to recondition it, so that way it doesn't dry rot any further. But beyond that, it's going to get stored away. That leads me to my next point. I want to start a museum. Not just any museum. I'm not talking about like a little community museum of camping and campcraft. No. I've got a dream, and I'm inviting you to be on it. This dream is to make the premier camping, outdoor recreation museum, the Smithsonian of outdoor recreation. We're going to call it the National Center of Outdoor Recreation. Okay? I've got a great team that's backing me up on this, and to help fund the process of this museum, get the starting seed money going so we can get like a lawyer for the 501c3, because I'm having trouble finding a lawyer that will do it pro bono. So if you know one here in Ohio, send them my way. I'd really appreciate it, because we do want to do it right. But in the description box below, there's a form. And in the form, it has lots of different ways for you to help out. Even if you don't have a penny to give towards the effort, there are lots of other things you can do to help me with the effort of getting this dream off the ground, so that artifacts like this and like the pack and all the other things you see around me has a home. But on top of that, so that they can be reproduced. You know, like the press and mess kit. The press and mess kit I thought was going to be a pipe dream. You guys saw some promise in it just as much as I did, and we've got it going on. You can get your own for $200. And it's 316 stainless steel, so it's going to be perfect for camping environments. It's going to be durable, it'll be heat resistant, and all that other good stuff. You get a 54-ounce canteen. You get the cup that the canteen nests in. It comes with a skillet. It comes with the plate. Now the skillet and the plate, it's my favorite part about this thing. So they clamshell together, so you got yourself a storage container you can put in. It has a baker, which I love making cookies and breads and cobblers and things like that in it. But it's, in my opinion, the best personal mess kit, okay? I took an original artifact and we're reproducing it. That's what the museum is going to do. You know, it is going to not only collect all these things, but very rare things like that we can put out on the market again, so everybody can enjoy it. And not only that, like, you don't have to sacrifice a primary source. I think that's beautiful. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. It's going to have so much to it, and I hope you get to join me on it. Like, seriously, consider it. Again, check it out in the description box below. You'll see 2 links. One is to seeing how you can help out with the museum, whether it be personal connections or advice or suggestions, you know, whatever. You know, we appreciate it. You can also join the Camp Crafters Guild, and there's different tiers to the Camp Crafters Guild. So, including lifetime membership and admission to the museum, depending on how much money that you got to put into the effort. You know, we have these different tiers to help the process along. Now, if you like this video, please click like, because we really appreciate it. It helps other people find the video, helps us out. So, and it pushes this dream forward. So without you guys, we can't make this happen. Bottom line, that's the truth of it. If you'd like to see video about the press and mess kit, if you're on the fence and you don't even know what the press and mess kit is, you can check it out here. If you'd like to see more videos about the camp crafting gear, then you can check it out here. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss note to your loved ones, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.